For decades, Ethiopia's military power was built around soldiers, tanks, artillery, and conventional aircraft. But in recent years, something changed. A new generation of weapons entered Ethiopia's arsenal. They do not need a pilot sitting inside a cockpit. They can remain in the sky for hours. They can watch a battlefield from above. And some can carry precision-guided weapons. They are combat drones. During the Tigray War, drones became one of the most important new elements of Ethiopia's military campaign. Turkey, China, Iran, and the United Arab Emirates all became part of a rapidly changing military landscape surrounding Ethiopia. Today, Ethiopia has moved beyond the drones that first attracted international attention during the Tigray conflict. In January 2026, Ethiopia received Bayraktar Akıncı unmanned combat aircraft, according to Yanes, marking another step toward a more sophisticated unmanned aircraft capability. So how did Ethiopia get here? Why did drones become so important? And just how powerful is Ethiopia's drone capability today? This is the story of Ethiopia's drone power. To understand Ethiopia's drone transformation, we first have to look at the country's traditional military power. For much of the modern era, Ethiopia's air power depended on conventional aircraft, fighter jets, transport aircraft, helicopters, and surveillance platforms. The Ethiopian Air Force had experience operating Soviet and Russian aircraft, and later acquired more advanced systems. But conventional aircraft are expensive to operate. They require pilots. They require significant maintenance. And losing an aircraft can mean losing not only an expensive machine, but also a highly trained pilot. Drones offered something different. They could provide persistent surveillance. They could carry weapons. And compared with traditional combat aircraft, some systems could be acquired and operated at a lower cost. The result was a major change in the economics of warfare. And Ethiopia was about to experience that change firsthand. The turning point came with the outbreak of the Tigray War in November 2020. The conflict quickly became a major conventional war. Federal forces and allied regional forces fought against forces aligned with the Tigray People's Liberation Front. The battlefield was enormous. Roads were long. Mountainous terrain dominated much of the region. And both sides depended heavily on logistics. This created an environment in which aerial surveillance and precision strikes could become extremely valuable. During the conflict, Ethiopia acquired and used several types of armed drones. A 2022 report by Insecurity Insight identified 3 major armed drone types associated with Ethiopian operations: the Turkish-made Bayraktar TB2, the Chinese-made Wing Loong II, and the Iranian-made Mohajer-6. This was significant. Ethiopia was no longer relying on a single foreign supplier. It was building a diverse unmanned aircraft capability. Perhaps the most famous drone associated with Ethiopia is the Turkish Bayraktar TB2. The TB2 became one of the world's most recognizable combat drones after seeing extensive use in conflicts from Libya to Nagorno-Karabakh and beyond. Its appeal was relatively straightforward. It could conduct surveillance. It could remain over an area for extended periods. And it could carry guided weapons. The TB2 became particularly influential in Africa. The Africa Center for Strategic Studies describes it as the single most widely used combat drone in Africa. Ethiopia became one of its operators. Yanes has previously reported photographic evidence confirming Ethiopian TB2s and their associated guided weapons. But the TB2 was only one part of Ethiopia's drone story. Another important aircraft was China's Wing Loong II. The Wing Loong belongs to a different family of medium-altitude, long-endurance unmanned aircraft. Open-source investigations identified evidence of Wing Loong aircraft associated with Ethiopia during the Tigray conflict. In addition, research published by Insecurity Insight identified the Chinese Wing Loong II among the armed drones reportedly used by Ethiopia. The aircraft became part of a wider network of military cooperation involving Ethiopia, China, and Gulf countries. The United Arab Emirates was particularly important in this story. Satellite imagery and open-source investigations indicated the presence of Chinese-made Wing Loong aircraft at the UAE facility in Assab, Eritrea, during the period of the Tigray War. That highlighted something important about modern warfare in the Horn of Africa. The battlefield was no longer only Ethiopian. It was connected to the wider Red Sea and Gulf security environment. Then there was Iran. The Mohajer-6 became another part of Ethiopia's unmanned arsenal. In 2021, open-source researchers identified evidence of Iranian Mohajer-6 drones and a related ground control station in Ethiopia. Later research identified the Mohajer-6 as one of the three principal armed drone types associated with Ethiopia during the Tigray War. The significance was larger than a single aircraft. Ethiopia was demonstrating that it could work with different suppliers and integrate different unmanned systems into its military operations. Turkey, China, Iran, and support from Gulf partners. Ethiopia's drone capability was becoming international in character. So why are drones so important? The answer is not simply that they carry bombs. Their greatest value can begin before a weapon is ever fired. A drone can provide a military commander with an aerial view of a battlefield. It can help monitor movement. It can support reconnaissance. It can help identify potential targets. And armed versions can combine surveillance with the ability to conduct strikes. That combination changes the speed of warfare. Instead of discovering a target and then waiting for a separate aircraft to respond, an armed drone can potentially perform both missions. The Africa Center for Strategic Studies describes this combination of intelligence, surveillance, and strike capability as one of the reasons drones are reshaping African battlefields. But drones are not magic weapons. They have limitations. They depend on communications, trained personnel, maintenance, intelligence, and a wider military system. And their effectiveness depends heavily on the environment in which they are used. Drones became increasingly important as the battlefield changed. In 2021, Tigrayan forces made major advances and pushed south toward Addis Ababa. The Ethiopian government and its allies responded with a combination of ground operations and air power. Drones became part of that response. Their role was particularly important because they could provide persistent aerial surveillance and strike capability without putting a conventional fighter pilot directly over the battlefield. Research published by Sahan Global describes Turkish and Emirati-supplied drones as having played a major role in the Ethiopian government's military campaign during the conflict. But there was another side to the story. Drone warfare also raised serious questions about civilian protection. Investigations and human rights organizations documented civilian casualties associated with airstrikes during the conflict. This is an important part of the story, because the growth of drone warfare is not simply a story about military technology. It is also a story about accountability. The same technology that gives a military greater precision can also cause devastating consequences when targeting information is wrong, or when civilians are present near a target. Research on air-delivered weapons in Ethiopia documented several types of weapons associated with the drones used during the conflict and examined their potential effects on civilians. This created one of the central controversies surrounding Ethiopia's drone program. Supporters argued that drones gave the government a powerful tool against armed forces. Critics argued that the use of air power in populated areas created unacceptable risks to civilians. And this debate has continued beyond Tigray. The Pretoria Agreement of November 2022 ended the major phase of the Tigray War. But Ethiopia's internal security problems did not end. Armed conflicts continued in other parts of the country. In Oromia, in Amhara, and elsewhere. The Ethiopian government increasingly turned to air power and unmanned systems as part of its response to armed insurgencies. The Africa Center has reported the increasing use of drones in Ethiopia's counterinsurgency operations beyond Tigray. This suggests that drones have moved from being an emergency wartime acquisition to becoming a more permanent part of Ethiopia's military strategy. And that brings us to the next question. How far has Ethiopia's drone capability actually developed? In January 2026, Ethiopia's drone story entered a new chapter. Yanes reported that Ethiopia received Bayraktar Akıncı armed unmanned aerial vehicles. The number delivered was not publicly disclosed. And that detail matters, because one of the biggest problems when discussing Ethiopia's military drone capability is the lack of reliable public information about fleet size. We can identify aircraft. We can identify acquisitions. We can identify photographs and official announcements. But that does not necessarily tell us how many aircraft are operational today. What we do know is that the Akıncı represents a significant step above the TB2 in terms of size and payload. According to manufacturer specifications, the Akıncı has a maximum takeoff weight of 6,000 kilograms and a payload capacity of up to 1,500 kilograms, with an advertised endurance exceeding 24 hours depending on configuration. This is no longer simply a small battlefield surveillance drone. It is a strategic unmanned aircraft, and Ethiopia's acquisition signals growing ambition. So what does Ethiopia's drone fleet look like? The safest answer is, we don't know the exact number, but we can identify several important platforms through official announcements, imagery, and open source research. The Bayraktar TB2, the Wing Loong II, the Mohajer-6, and now the Bayraktar Akıncı. The combination is significant. It means Ethiopia has experience with different types of unmanned aircraft from different technological ecosystems. And this diversity could give Ethiopia greater flexibility. But it also creates challenges. Different aircraft require different training, different maintenance systems, different weapons, different spare parts, and different technical expertise. A large fleet is not automatically an effective fleet. What matters is whether the entire system works together. One of the least discussed parts of drone warfare is the human element. A sophisticated drone is only useful if an air force can operate and maintain it. That requires pilots and operators, intelligence specialists, engineers, technicians, communications specialists, targeting and analysis teams, and commanders who understand how unmanned systems fit into a larger military strategy. A typical TB2 package, for example, involves not just the aircraft but ground control and support equipment, and operators require training. The Africa Center notes that effective operation of such systems can require months of training. This means Ethiopia's drone transformation is also a transformation in military expertise. The country is building experience in an entirely new form of air warfare. Geography gives Ethiopia another important advantage. The country is enormous. Its terrain is extremely varied. Highlands, lowlands, deserts, deep valleys, long roads connecting distant regions. For a military trying to monitor such a large territory, unmanned aircraft can offer an important tool. They can provide aerial surveillance without requiring a conventional fighter aircraft to perform every mission. And because Ethiopia has faced multiple internal security challenges across different regions, the potential applications extend well beyond conventional war. Border surveillance, counterinsurgency, infrastructure security, and battlefield intelligence. The drone is becoming a multi-purpose military asset. But there is a danger in assuming that drones can solve every military problem. They cannot. A drone can observe territory. It can strike a target. But it cannot occupy a city. It cannot control a road. It cannot negotiate with local communities. And it cannot replace soldiers on the ground. Drones can also face electronic warfare, air defenses, bad weather, communication problems, and mechanical failures. And insurgent groups can adapt their tactics. The Africa Center notes that armed drones can be highly effective, but also emphasizes their limitations against dispersed forces and the difficulty of translating air power into control of territory. That distinction is critical. Air superiority is not the same thing as political victory. Ethiopia is not developing its drone capability in isolation. Across the Horn of Africa and the Red Sea, military drones are becoming increasingly important. Sudan, Egypt, Somalia, Eritrea, the Gulf states, Turkey, Iran, China, The Red Sea has become a major arena for military technology and geopolitical competition. Ethiopia's drone acquisitions therefore have implications beyond its borders. They are part of a wider transformation in the security environment of the Horn of Africa. The age of relatively small air forces dominating the skies with conventional aircraft is giving way to something more complicated. Aircraft, drones, electronic warfare, satellites, commercial satellite imagery, and increasingly sophisticated intelligence networks. The battlefield is becoming more connected. There is another question that could define Ethiopia's future. Can Ethiopia eventually produce more of its own unmanned systems? The country has long maintained ambitions to develop domestic technological and aerospace capabilities. For Ethiopia, local production would offer an important advantage. Instead of depending entirely on foreign suppliers, the country could potentially develop its own systems. But building a sophisticated military drone industry is difficult. It requires electronics, sensors, engines, data links, software, manufacturing, testing, and a highly skilled workforce. So the question is not simply whether Ethiopia can build a drone. The bigger question is whether it can build an entire ecosystem around unmanned aviation. So, finally, how powerful is Ethiopia's drone capability? The answer depends on what we mean by powerful. If we mean the number of drones, reliable public figures are difficult to establish. If we mean variety, Ethiopia has developed a notable mix of Turkish, Chinese, and Iranian systems. If we mean combat experience, Ethiopia has accumulated significant operational experience since 2020. And if we mean future potential, the arrival of the Akıncı suggests that Ethiopia wants to move toward larger and more capable unmanned aircraft. That makes Ethiopia one of the more significant military drone operators in Africa. But it would be a mistake to describe Ethiopia as having unlimited drone power. The real capability depends on training, maintenance, intelligence, weapons, communications, logistics, and the ability to integrate drones with conventional forces. The aircraft are only one part of the equation. In less than a decade, Ethiopia's approach to military aviation has changed dramatically. The country that once depended primarily on conventional aircraft has entered the age of unmanned warfare. The Tigray War accelerated that transformation. The Bayraktar TB2 became a symbol of it. The Wing Loong and Mohajer-6 demonstrated Ethiopia's willingness to work with different suppliers. And now, the arrival of the Akıncı suggests that Ethiopia wants to move into a new generation of unmanned combat aviation. But the real story is bigger than drones. It is about how warfare is changing. It is about technology, foreign partnerships, military modernization, and the growing importance of the Horn of Africa in global security. For Ethiopia, drones have already changed the battlefield. The question now is whether they will change the country's entire military doctrine. And perhaps the biggest question is still unanswered. Will Ethiopia remain primarily a buyer of foreign military technology, or eventually become a producer of its own? One thing is clear. The drone era has arrived in Ethiopia. And whatever happens next, unmanned aircraft will almost certainly remain an important part of the country's military future.